Okay, so how's David's day?
It's been alright, yeah. I've done, what did I do today?
Yeah.
So I've been just recording some like vocals for, I busk a lot, so I've been I'm like making a new CD. Because the CDs are where the money is at, you know.
Yeah.
So I've just been doing the vocals for that. But I feel like I didn't get going for fucking ages today, you know.
Yeah.
Like, should I be swearing? Should I not be swearing? What's the rules for this podcast?
No,
I have no filter, so it's
no
not going to
filter,
happen.
No, go for
Sick.
it. Go for it.
Yeah, no, so like, I didn't get going for ages, you know, like it was, I thought I'd be going busking, but I hadn't checked the weather, and then it was like absolutely pissing it down today, but yeah, so literally just doing some vocals, and that's it. I've been like probably less productive than usual today.
Yeah. And is that new material, or are you re-recording?
Yeah, so it's there's a handful of songs that I haven't got out anywhere on it, and then like the rest of it is like, it's like covers and stuff that I do for my set. You know, I think like I want to do one for busking as well that's just originals.
Yeah.
But well, I don't know. I feel like I'd have to like have an idea of like what the demand for it was, you know.
Yeah.
Like especially with like being out on the street or whatever. Like there's an amount of it that's like driven by like the familiarity of the tunes and stuff. So I think maybe like putting it out just completely blind, you know, like maybe people wouldn't go for it as much. But yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about. Yeah, it's very difficult to know. I mean, I was in a band a long time ago, and we used to do CDs that we sold on the street that were like all originals, and they did sell. So maybe I just don't know what I'm talking about. Just got like solo artist nerves on, you know. It's like there's strength in numbers or something.
So you've been a solo artist for how many years? This is the current thing you're doing.
Well, I mean, I've been doing it since I guess 2019. I started releasing stuff on my own.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that it feels very new still, just because like there was such a slice taken out of it from lockdown, you know.
Yeah.
Like I think I was probably only going for like 6 or 7 months before lockdown kicked in, and then it was like pretty shut down. Although I kept like material coming out, like it was just difficult to, you know. I had a bunch of the. In fact, I've never actually done like a gig that I've put on. Like I booked a bunch like in the lead up to lockdown, and they all got cancelled. It sucked. But I wasn't even living up here at the time, and I sold a bunch of tickets to a show up here. Yeah. And then like I was just watching it like get less and less likely to happen through the year, you know. But yeah, no, I still haven't done it just because. I don't know, like stuff's got in the way, like I moved up here and stuff, so it's just been always something happening.
So where were you living before then? Was it near Manchester or?
No, miles away. I was down in like Worcestershire, like, which is like there's nothing going on down there, which is why I moved.
Okay.
Yeah. Like it's very like the band I was in before, we were like pretty big. We were pretty big in Worcester, you know, but like Worcester's like such a small city, you know. We always struggled to break out, like even like Birmingham, which is only like 20 minutes up the road on the train or whatever. We like really struggled to get a foothold there, and it was really weird to be able to like sell out like the 2 venues in Worcester, and then like you go like anywhere 20 miles down the road and no one's ever heard of you, you know. So I felt like I needed to get somewhere that was like a little better connected, you know.
Okay, so you're with this band, and then you broke up. What, you just went your separate ways?
Yeah, so I mean, got to figure out which way I'm going to go with this story now. There's the professional version, and then there's the public version, or the personal version. You know, so. There was, I mean, I'll just leave it as there was a lot of drama going on at the end, you know. It's like a lot of that seems to happen with bands a lot, you know. I think especially like we were living together and stuff, and we like work together every day, so like there's a lot of time for tension in that, you know. But then the other reason is just like we wanted to make different music to each other, so
What kind of music were you making in the bands?
Well, it was very, very retro, you know. I mean, I was trying. The last like year or two of it, I was trying to push it a bit of a different way. But I mean, we started out as like we pretty much started out like some sort of like 60s like cover band or something. It wasn't supposed to be that way, but like we were just so inspired by like old like the Beatles and like that kind of era. like wanted to get those like weird chords and harmonies and stuff going on, and it just turned into this like sort of retro outfit. And then we like kind of pushed in like a poppier direction after that, which was probably a mistake actually. You know, like at the time I was like, I mean, I was very young at the time, but I was thinking like, we're never going to make anything of ourselves unless we go in this like mainstream direction. But actually, like, we probably had more of a chance of getting somewhere if we like stuck with the kind of niche little indie vibe that we had, you know.
It's often the way, I think. Like, I mean, I guess there are two main ways that you have sort of success as an artist. It's either you do something quite obscure that people really like, and you don't necessarily get massively famous, but people really love your music.
Yeah, or maybe you do, you know. Cause some of those, you've got to think about how niche, like Nirvana or something.
Well,
you know, like,
I mean, what a great point. Yeah,
like you come out of the gate with something that's like really out there, and all of a sudden it's the biggest thing in the world. You know, it's really difficult to know what's going to be. It's difficult to know what's going to be the next pop music until some random outsider comes out and makes it that, you know.
I mean, I think it's difficult to imagine how strange, like how alternative Nirvana must have been like before they were famous. Yeah. Because so much of like music's kind of been inspired by that whole thing.
Yeah, like the grunge scene.
The grunge and and I guess that's the strange thing with music is often something comes out of nowhere, you know.
For sure. I mean, really the weird thing about music is like everything comes out of nowhere. You know, like I mean, I always think about I suppose that it really has its roots in stuff that was already popular, but like the stuff that's going on with like K-pop and stuff now, I don't think anyone expected that to be happening like 15 years ago or something. It's completely out of left field, but it always is. But yeah, there you go.
What do you think's going to be the next big thing in music?
Me? No, I don't know.
Well, that's what I asked.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I think I've had thoughts about it. I think I have no idea how long it's been going on for. At least since I was a kid, you know. At least since like the mid 2000s, probably longer than that even. Like I feel like rock as like a mainstream force has really been flagging. Definitely. You know, so I'd kind of like to see a resurgence in something. You know, with maybe more of a like a live first approach. You know, like because I think that like a lot of the stuff that's been really in the mainstream is stuff that's kind of like written for the studio, and then people go out and do like the best approximation of it live.
It's very true. It's very true. I mean, there's something quite unsatisfying about that.
I think so. Yeah.
It's like, where is the music? Where does it exist? You know, It's just a kind of file on a computer. And we're at a stage now, and I guess you could argue the same to an extent with some, you know, modern music that's not like, you know, electronic. But we're at a stage where the best way to listen to music is through headphones. And we're really like, I think back in the day, it's like just everything you listen to would be played on a guitar or a fucking like record player or something. That's like it.
I think about this all the time, you know. I think about like the fact that I think that, I mean, it's the same as fucking everything really, like the music and everything is like gotten very like atomized, you know, like there's it's much less. I mean, even if you think about like the radio or something, like the kind of old way of doing things where you could kind of count on a bunch of people listening to something together, you know, like even if everyone's like on their way to work or something and it's just in the car, like at least like a lot of those people are listening to the same stuff. Like I actually think that maybe there's something to that, or something to the lack of like a super, like I don't know whether you'd say that anyone was like really dominant now in the industry, like, you know, in the way that like Nirvana were massively
well, music's so sort of personalised now. With
this is what I mean. I think that the like definitely TikTok. Like I think that that basically I think that like the atomization of it has ended up in a place where there's like more space for more niche acts to come through, but it's much harder for someone to be just overwhelmingly massive, you know.
I mean that's the thing, like I mean, do you think we'll ever have something like the Beatles again in this climate where it's like they just blew up and they were like, I mean, there were other bands in the 60s, but, you know, they were just, the scale at which they were popular and listened to just really dwarfs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like the biggest like Beatle freak going, but like, you know, there's stuff that you hear about the Beatles is unbelievable. Like you know, what did I find out the other day? It's like I always already know this stuff. I just like rediscover it, but it's like that so like their second album knocked their own first album off the top of the charts. You know, like their first album was like the top of the charts for like 30 weeks, and then then the second album knocks off the top like nothing else could do it. It's like that's ridiculous.
That
you can't imagine anything else doing that. You know, but I think the answer really is no. Like it's funny. I've done a lot of soul searching about this because like for a long time I think. The importance of the Beatles in my life, like I always kind of liked the idea that like someone could do it, you know, like there's someone out there who's like someone's gonna be the person who really blows up in that unbelievable way. And I think that like as I've gotten older, like I mean I think for a long time like it was kind of like messing with my mental health, like the idea of like, oh, if it's gonna be me then I should have been like doing it by now, you know, like I should have been selling stadiums, you know,
I know what you
like
mean.
3 years ago or something. But I don't think it will happen just because of it's really like it's like a bandwidth issue, you know, like it's the thing of like if in like 63 when they came through, like, you know, there were like 4 TV channels or something, so all you got to do is get on TV once and a quarter of the country's seen you, and that's just that amount of reach isn't going to exist. I think there's also a big part of it is the thing of like, you know, like teenagers had only just started to exist in the 60s, you know, before that you like left school and went to work in a factory and started dressing the same as your dad or whatever. And so I think that like the way that we have like a bunch of subcultures now, like I think that just being a young person was enough to put you in like one big unified group of people because they like
true.
Like hadn't had time to like segment into these little groups. So like something comes around like the Beatles, it's like, oh, the Beatles is the band for teenagers, and then all the teenagers like it. So you can say something like young people like the Beatles in the 60s and like have that be true, but you can't say something like young people like Justin Bieber. That sounds ridiculous, you know, like it's too it's too like, because like the goths don't, you know, like it's there's these like clans I think stop anyone from getting massive because you're never going to be poppy enough to appeal to like the kind of mainstream and also heavy enough to appeal to like the punk kids. Like it's never going to happen.
There's absolutely no one who's really can do that, because by nature of having tribes, it's like, you know, you kind of got to not like the other music.
It's us and them stuff.
It's a bit us and them, and so you put it so well actually.
Thank you.
I think being a teenager was just, you know, like everyone could relate to the Beatles in such a clear way. And I can't think of anyone who's really done that since. I guess maybe Queen.
There's an argument for Queen. I don't know if that was true at the time though.
I don't think it was.
I don't know the history. Like I know everyone loves Queen now. But like I don't know whether if you go back to the 70s, 80s, like whether like they were a band for everyone. I know obviously they were huge, but like I don't know whether, again, like you can't imagine the punks liking Queen. You know, like
no.
That doesn't seem like it would fly.
No. It's pretty unique. Sort of thing. And so, when did you start like properly writing music, and what I mean, you talked a bit about the Beatles and stuff, but what really made you want to pursue music professionally? And
well, I think, you know, the real start of it is quite sort of cloudy for me. I can't really figure out where it came from. I think, like, I mean, I grew up. I mean, I don't know, to give like a bit of a brief rundown of it. I think I grew up loving like, I guess like Busted and McFly were happening when I was really young. Those were the first bands that I remembered liking, and then like I really remember like Green Day. Like I remember when American Idiot came out, like really, really vividly, and then like the whole emo scene was happening. I was into that, but I was never like, I don't think I thought about doing it like you know, doing it myself at that point. I remember watching a video of Deep Purple doing Smoke on the Water and deciding to learn guitar, which is hilariously cliched. The biggest cliche. And then I started getting going. Like I don't know when exactly I started playing guitar, but I put a band together. Like important for where I am from, we're like the only place in the country that still does like the 3-tiered school system, so we had a middle school. So when I was at
okay.
Weird.
What is middle school then?
So for me, it's funny because in the town over it's different, but like where I'm from, I think it's the only town in the country that does it this way. But so primary school was up to year 4, and then year 5 through year 8 was middle school, and then year 9 to year 11 was high school.
Oh yeah. No, I think I remember there was a school that did that where I lived, but it was like. Yeah, it's a bit weird, isn't it? Yeah.
It is weird. Putting all the hormonal guys in the same place is a fucking mistake. It's really terrible. Yeah, just the worst. But, so in middle school I started doing this band, and we played our first show at this like school talent show, which I think is like almost everyone's story. Like when I was like 12 or something. Yeah. And like it went down like way better than I expected it to, and I think it sort of put this like. Maybe I could actually do this thing in my head, and then I just never really dropped it. I just kept going through high school. And then by the time I finished high school, it was dawning on me that I had to like get serious about it or get like go to uni, get a job, that kind of stuff. So I was like, well, fuck it, we're gonna like go for it. So I put an advert out for someone to join a band with, and that's when this band I was in before started. So it all sort of happened over that kind of middle school, high school period. Teenage stuff. There's always teenage stuff. Does anyone ever start playing guitar anytime up to 12, 13?
Yeah. That's the time when it really happens, I think, because you sort of mature and like you get your own identity. And I remember that being quite exciting when I was like just starting to be a teenager. I sort of listened to music that wasn't stuff my parents listened to, and at the time it just felt so exciting.
I think it's a big part of like identity forming and like separating from your parents, and that definitely starts happening around that age.
Yeah.
What sort of stuff were you into like when you were a teenager?
Yeah, well, I mean, what I was thinking about then was like when I was in year 8, and we'd have like IT lessons or whatever, and we'd just go on SoundCloud and listen to like just sort of like, do you know there's this song called Get Hyper, which is it's like
maybe
I can't remember. It's like a dubstep song. But
oh yeah,
I remember
sick.
I used to bang that.
Completely different. Completely different. Yeah.
But yeah, it was kind of like you just listen to it because it was cool. But in a way that's kind of nice, because a lot of music is about identifying with something.
Yeah, it's like community forming and all that sort of stuff. I don't think it's funny. Like some of that stuff that's kind of cringe. Like, what was I thinking about this like the other day? I think there was something that like a band I used to like that like when I was 14 or something. Then by the time I was 19, I was like, my God, that's cringe. And then like now I look back on it, and it's like, no, actually that was cool, and it was the 19-year-old version of me who thought that was cringe that is cringe. I
know what you mean.
It's, it's so strange. Like you get older and realise that like you shouldn't shit on people for liking stuff. Doesn't matter what it's for.
Yeah, man. I've really thought that recently actually. Like. Just sort of, because when I was first getting into music, like seriously, I'd really make an effort to like listen to world classics, and I'd try and really challenge myself with what I listen to. And more recently now, I have a lot less patience, which in a way is bad, but I'm much more looking for just songs that I just like. And that has good and bad things, but I think you shouldn't shit on stuff that's just accessible and easy.
Of course not. Like, I mean, it's very like I don't know. It has like this. I mean, I think that like the musicians, it's not so much like any of the music listening crowd. Although maybe it is some of them. I don't know. Like metal kids. I was a metal kid, so I'm allowed to say this. Like very elitist, But I think that musicians like have a real hard time not falling into a kind of elitism themselves.
Definitely.
I think it's because like once you know what's what, then you can look at stuff that's got 3 chords and be like, it's shit or something. It's like it's not though, like if you can write something with 3 chords that like everybody sings, then
I mean,
that's
if you can do
good,
it well,
right?
If you can do it well.
Like but I mean, obviously it's complicated. I'm not saying that there's not a value in having some like complicated stuff, because I mean my stuff's nuts. It is. Thanks. But so like I can see both sides of it, but I do think that like there's an elitism problem with the whole shitting on pop and that kind of thing.
Well, it's like I'll tell you, there's a song I've been listening to at the moment, which is that it's by like Moldovan bands where it's like I don't know what it's actually called, but it's like Milahi, that one.
Oh yeah. That was massive when I was a kid. Yeah.
So like, I don't know, a few years ago I just never given that the time. But I listen to it now. It's like actually
banger.
It's so good, and it's so weird because it's such simple chords. I don't know why it's so.
I never even thought about the chords, honestly. I'd have to go back and listen to it.
Yeah.
It's a great song though.
There's something about it that's so great.
Yeah.
And you listen to their next song, like the follow-up single from that, and it's just really boring. It's weird. They just capture something.
I would be amazed if I've ever heard anything else by them. That was one of those songs. When was that? Like 2003. It's like the playlist of 7-year-old me.
Yeah.
Weird. But
just like out of nowhere as well. I mean, Moldova is there? Could you get any more remote?
Yeah, I know. It's like it's so strange. Like you'd be less surprised if it was like China or something. Even though it's European or something. It's 100%. Like I don't think there's no way I'd heard of Moldova when I was 7, but they were out there.
Yeah, it's the least visited country in Europe, I think.
Is it?
It's very.
Isn't it like very? There's shit going on with Russia there as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's drama.
There's a little bit of Moldova that is sort of unofficially run by basically a puppet state.
Right.
And they have they're real sort of nostalgic communists. So
nice.
Yeah, they got all the communist buildings and stuff.
Yeah.
Actually, I have some. I'm not sure if I have it with me, but. I was in Romania in the summer.
Oh yeah,
I bought some, which next to Moldova.
Yeah.
And I bought some rum from Tiraspol, which is the capital of Transnistria, which is that.
Right. Okay.
I thought, wow, this real Soviet experience.
Oh yeah, for sure. You'd think it'd be vodka, right?
Yeah, I know. I mean, it just tasted like normal rum, but.
Nice vodka with food colouring in.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, but yeah, I think, Anyway, to cap it off, I do think that there's loads of value in pop, and it's not even just pop, but simple stuff. I mean, you think about it, Smells Like Teen Spirit's only got 4 chords in it, right? It's
well, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, they're weird.
Very weird chords. Yeah.
But still, it's. I mean, I actually think it's more about that. That tends to be. It's not like the. I mean, because I'm really into jazz and stuff, and I think that that side of me kind of likes the, where the hell's this going, the chord progressions that go on forever and keep changing and that whole thing. But really, you can have 3 chords. The thing that I really look for and the thing that I try and do most of the time is just have it. Have some weird harmonic stuff going on. It doesn't. Yeah. I don't tend to write those super long progressions. Some of the stuff I do busking I don't know. It's funny because they were all massive songs at the time, but I bet they're super remote now. But I do A Nightingale Sang in Berkeley Square, which Lynn did, and Nat King Cole did it as well. But and that thing goes on for days. The chord progression, it's bars and bars and bars of changes, and it's takes forever to wrap around on itself. I've never written anything like that. It's always just that, weird out of key stuff going on.
Yeah. I mean, your new song, it's very interesting because when I first listened to it, I thought, I'll be able to work that out,
Oh yeah.
The
super
intro
weird.
Is very weird. Yeah,
it's really weird. It's got that minor 5 in it.
Yeah, is that what it is? Yeah.
Yeah. It's the 5 chords always major. It's I was nah, not this time.
Yeah.
I think I stole that from. Who did I steal it from? Probably the Beatles.
Yeah.
But there's another one, or something similar. No, I stole something else from. I can't even remember his name now. There's anyway, I'll have to hit you up with that afterwards. But I think it's got a bunch of chord progressions in it that I basically just nicked. Put together in a weird way. I always thought of it as being when I was writing it, I thought of it as being my When the Sun Goes Down, the Arctic Monkeys tune.
Very that.
Yeah. I think. I didn't really think about it until I already had the first bit, and I couldn't figure out where to go with it because I knew I wanted it to go way more upbeat after that intro.
Yeah.
And I thought but I didn't know what to do with it. And then I saw like that tune, I never knew it until I was looking it up for this. Like it changes from like a major key to a minor key, like right at that, like the intro of it is a major in the second half.
What when the song goes down?
Yeah, when the song goes down. Yeah. And I was just like, that's cool. I'll just do that. So mine does as well. It just changes key. But like you never see those key changes. I don't think. I mean, you'd barely see key changes now anyway.
God, but like, I mean, that's the one thing you really lack is interesting key changes. Really, it's just like. Yeah, it's such an exciting tool to use.
It is, yeah. I mean, I do think that the one worry that I do have with like the kind of simpler stuff, and actually it's more of a concern that I have with like I think as I mean I don't know, you tell me whether you agree, but I think that like musicians that I meet now, compared to musicians that I met when I was starting out when I was like 12 or whatever, but like when I was 12 or whatever, like everyone who started playing, everyone who wanted to be a musician, like they wanted to be like a guitarist, or they wanted to play piano or bass or drums or something, and now it's much more in this like kind of producer first kind of thing, and like they're like sort of primary instrument is like a laptop or something. Not that that's a problem, just that like I do think that it's much harder to learn like theory, I guess. Like it's much harder to know your way around the chords and know what key changes are and stuff if you're having to program everything.
I mean, it's becoming a lot more like what people are spending time on is not really the music theory, but the kind of equally challenging task of mixing.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, like the recording process is way harder than the writing process. Yeah. Like even though, but it's for exactly this. I'm just in the opposite place to they are. Like I've been playing guitar forever. Yeah. And like I've been producing for like 3 years or something. So so. Like that's why.
Do you produce all your stuff yourself?
I do. I kind of want to change that now. Yeah. Like I used to when I started. I mean, the band never produced ourselves. We had a guy, I'm gonna do a name drop no one's heard of, but he'll appreciate it. So we used to have this guy, Ben Stankham, who I went to school with, who he was charging us, when we started out, he was charging us like 50 quid a track or something, which was nothing. And, but to be fair, he was like a kid, so it made sense. But like, he's like gone on to do ridiculous stuff.
Really?
He... I think, I mean, God knows what's happened to him now, but before the pandemic, he was like living between back home where I'm from, Worcestershire, and LA. Like he spent half the time in LA. Like, and he's done. I think he did some, like he did ghost production on like a 5 Seconds of Summer album or something. Like he's done really well for himself.
Fair play.
But yeah, anyway, so I stopped using him because I think the last time I asked, it was like $7.50 a track or something, like it's like it got expensive.
You got him when he was
I got him when he was starting, and so we used him, and then we swapped to another guy called Elliot Vaughan down in Birmingham, and he was pretty cool. But like I think at that time, like having just come out of the band, I was really like trying to figure out what I actually wanted to sound like, and I felt like it was kind of the wrong move to go into a situation where like in order to figure that out, I had to like keep paying someone. I wanted to get better at producing so that I could stay at home and like work through it and keep making changes and figure out what I liked. But now that I do know a little more what I'm going for, I think I'm probably in a position to go and start working with a producer again. Although again it all depends whether I don't know, like the financials of it are difficult, like because with the I mean, I'm sure you found this as well, like the pace of stuff, like the idea of getting a single out every like 2 months or something, like trying to keep that thing up, like gets very expensive if you're going to a good producer all the time.
Big investment.
Yeah, massive.
Yeah, no, it's difficult to know because the quality is so much better with a producer, but it's not a easy way to make money for it, definitely.
No. Well, I mean, I found like the money that comes in from stuff is so from streaming especially is just so ridiculously minuscule, you know. Like
well, I think that's probably another sort of modern example of like how the most successful just do disproportionately well.
Yeah.
Because like think about, you know, Ed Sheeran or like I don't know.
Well, yeah, like those people make.
It's like those people make absolute racks,
yeah.
but the rest, like 90% of them, it's like. I heard that most of the money made from music is just merch. And
well, it's funny. I was gonna say I'm pretty sure, like I've sold. In lockdown I built up like a little like online audience around myself. Like, it's dipped off a little bit now because I had a few I had like a big mental health thing last year and kind of like dipped off the face of the earth, stopped posting and stuff, and then it's sort of taken me a while to get back to where I'm at now. And also like I think that stuff's changed a little bit. Like at the time, I think my music was a bit different, and like, you know, so the audience, I feel like some of the audience that I had then is not really going to be along for the ride now. But anyway, I think like all of the streams that I've ever, all the streaming revenue I've ever got is like pales in comparison to the like 25 t-shirts I sold in that year or something. You know, it's so strange. Like it's just impossible. You have to be doing hundreds of thousands and millions of streams to get anything out of it.
Yeah. Oh no, I remember you talking about your fan base. Before you had a sort of rebrand. Yeah. I mean, you know, still about, but apparently, I remember you saying you sort of got people following you around in Manchester and stuff like that.
Well, yeah. Like I came to. It's funny because they might end up listening to this. Yeah. I came to Manchester I was living back at home at the time. Yeah. And I was writing with a guy. You might know him. I don't know. I was writing with a dude. I forget what his stage name is now, but he goes by Tuesday Tony because he runs the open mic at the Thirsty Scholar in town on a Tuesday.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so I'd like been chatting with him a bit, and we ended up writing some stuff. Like he's got a producer he works with. Yeah. It was just a laugh really, but so I was coming up to write some stuff with him, and I think I like put on my story that I was coming up to Manchester from Birmingham, and like. By the time I got there, like 3 of these kids had figured out what train I was on. And they were there at Piccadilly when I got there, which was like lovely and also a little bit
very
terrifying.
Scary, because that's the thing, like it's getting control of fame.
Yeah, and I didn't have anything, you know. Like it was like I was only being, you know, the audience was only like 3,000 people or something. Yeah. It was still, it was actually a weird. Like wake up call to the idea that like this would get a lot worse if if more happened, you know. And
you can't just switch off exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
That is the problem. Is I mean it's amazing to have that happen to you. But you don't really have a choice about. You know whether it happens or not.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny actually. Like I said, this band I was in were really big in Worcester. Yeah. Which is a hilarious statement. Yeah. But we, I mean, it was really good. When I was in 2016 or something. Yeah, would have been 2016. I was getting together with my girlfriend at the time. Yeah. And it was incredible for my cause that every time we went out and we'd go out for dinner or something, every time a couple of people would come up to the table and be like, I really like your music, you know. Oh, wow. And that was I was like, this is putting in work for me. Yeah. But yeah, so it's got its pros and cons, you know.
Definitely.
But then that's the problem. The problem is you can't control when it happens, and I think. For me, more so than anything that's ever happened in person, the thing that I really struggled to deal with for a while was in 2020 during lockdown, there was a period of time where I didn't have anything to do, and none of these kind of school age kids had anything to do, and so every day I'd wake up and my Instagram inbox would have 100 new messages in, and I couldn't answer them, you know, it was intense trying to answer these messages, and and then like as soon as I'd message them, like I'd have stuff back and stuff, and I found like I think it's a little different when you're like when you're a kid yourself, like because I remember I was on my phone the whole time. You know, I would have happily spent all day on social media when I was younger, but with stuff going on, I found it very overwhelming to have this situation where it's like I can only be in my DMs for so long because I've got to like go and record, got to go bust, got to do whatever. But like it was like this like ever growing pile of messages, you know. And then I felt bad, you know, because it's because the thing is like it was this thing where it was like it was enough people for their messages to be overwhelming. Yeah. But it was few enough people that I knew who all of them were. Yeah. You know, so I felt like I was letting individual people down by not messaging back. You know, if it was thousands and thousands of people, then I could like take some solace in the idea of like, oh well, you know, there's no way I could ever like, and you know, it's just like a faceless kind of Instagram handle or whatever. But because it was like, you know, it's like 50 really dedicated fans, it was like shit. I'm like letting like Sky down in particular, you know? And like that really made it. It was really difficult for me, and so I used to put. In fact, I remember I used to have like an alert on my phone for like probably around 7 o'clock or something, where it was like, oh, like spend an hour in your DMs, you know, like that was, and it was like something I tried to put in every day just to make sure that I got back to people, and like I feel like it probably contributed to me having like a complete fucking meltdown last year. It was this thing of like trying to keep on top of writing and also keep on top of busking, and then like 7 o'clock every day we've got to spend an hour answering these DMs and stuff. It was very overwhelming. So yeah, for sure. Like both physically and online, in my experience, like it can be a lot to deal with. Like not even fame, because it's ridiculous to call it fame when it's like that level. It's just I think that when you become a musician, you kind of necessarily, it comes hand in hand if you're going to do it properly with making yourself like I don't know how to put it, like you're like a figure of interest or something. Like you are going to get interactions, you are going to get attention, and that can be difficult even when it's not at a massive level, you know.
Yeah, man. Yeah, definitely. So you talked a bit about fame and stuff. What is your goal in music? Like, what is success to you? Is it fame? Is it
honestly, there's like a bunch of answers to it. Like, because I think that like there's the recently put to bed for now, although likely to come up again. Like delusional dream of like, I'm gonna be like the artist of the 21st century and like be absolutely Titanic and this kind of thing, which I think that like that's kind of a goal I've had to let go of for now. Because it will resurface. But I've had to let go of it because I think that measuring yourself against that, you know, that's not even winning the lottery. You know, like getting to a relative level of success is winning the lottery. That's like winning the lottery and then winning the lottery again or something. You know, it's like it's insane to assume that you could ever do that. So I've kind of put that to bed. And then there's the other level, which is like, I guess I'd like to be able to tour. You know, like that's kind of where I'm at with it. I think that if I could get to a point where, you know, like I could sell out like some venue off in like Arizona or some shit, you know, like that's that, you know, it doesn't have to be a stadium, you know, it could be. I like the idea of getting to travel with it, and simultaneously, like, I mean, a big thing is just like kind of living comfortably, because like at the same, like again, I'm sure you're the same, you know, like trying to I mean, music's been my only job since I was 17. And like it's a long time. It's nearly 10 years now of like kind of, I don't know exactly what the word is for it. Like not scraping by. That makes it sound worse than it is. But like it's very kind of grating to be always like, okay, I got to make sure I have a bunch of gigs next month so I can pay my rent and all that kind of, you know, that kind of grind. So if honestly, if I could just be on like enough of an income that like it wasn't like terrifying every month, you know, that would be sick. But then there's the kind of like my heart's answer, which is like I want to see if I can change the way that things work a bit, you know. I mean, I always think like I too am a nostalgic communist at heart.
Yeah,
yeah. I kind of like the idea of putting myself in a situation where like something I'd really like to do is get to a position where the music that I was making was sort of very successful, but then do something like, rather than hire a bunch of roadies and pay them as little as I can get away with paying them or something. I kind of like the idea of like being able to like take the thing on the road and like give everyone a share in it, So it's like if it's successful, then we're all doing well, and I'm not doing that much better than you are, because I kind of a lot of my thinking is kind of politically bent, I guess. So like there's
I mean, a big part of your sort of identity as a musician is
very
tied up with
political,
politics, especially like maybe not so much back. I mean, some of your older stuff that I was starting to listen to. By the way, Princess is an amazing song.
Cheers, mate.
Song.
I wrote that very, very long time ago.
Yeah.
I actually wrote it for. See, this is creative differences coming up again.
Yeah.
I wrote it for the old band I was in.
Oh, really?
In fact, I think that recording of it is in the studio. It definitely is. It's in the studio with Ben, who I was talking about before.
Oh, really?
I recorded that in like 2016 or something, and then Max, the guy I was in a band with, didn't want to release it. Because it was like, I mean...
Madness.
I know, complete madness. To be fair, I kind of get it now, because like I was kind of pushing against what our brand was and stuff, I was kind of taking us in a direction that, like, I don't think that he was happy with going. There's, point is, I don't blame him for it, but but at the same time, it's an objectively great song, what you're talking about. But yeah, so I wrote that ages ago, and then when I started putting stuff out on my own, like my manager was like, "Oh, we've got these recordings, we should just throw them out." So it's funny, like they ended up coming out like 3 years later than it was written. But cheers, I appreciate that.
But yeah, I mean, it's very different to your sort of new, like more recent stuff.
Well, I can't shut up now.
Yeah.
It's just I think like it just comes from the fact that like I can't really help but write what I'm thinking.
Of course.
I find myself possibly disturbingly thinking more and more about like the state of the world and stuff, rather than thinking about like girls that I'm seeing or whatever. Although there's still that, I just got in a new relationship and like love songs coming out again. So like it's just always the way that it happens. Like but this is what I mean, whatever I'm thinking just sort of comes out. I can't really write any other way. I don't think I've ever really been able to write stuff that's kind of premeditated, really. In fact, I even tried, because I'm putting like an album together hypothetically. I don't know if it'll end up getting released as an album because logistics, but like I've been putting an album together, and for a long time I thought like, this is like this basis that I've got is like accidentally a concept album. So it's like with that in mind, it's like I've got to like write songs to like fill the gaps in. But then like trying to do that, I always found really difficult, because it's like I've got to write something about like, I don't know, got to write something about like the moment you realise a relationship's falling apart now, because then that'll fit in with the story.
I mean,
and I found it really difficult to do it.
I never get how you'd write a concept album. Like, you think of the great concept albums of like the 70s, and it's like, this song is about when this character does this in a song. It's like, how are you? How are you
doing that? I mean, even like
that,
American Idiot is like a concept album. I mean, I always think that like the first Arctic Monkeys album is like a concept album about going out in Sheffield, which is like a funny way of putting it. But like,
it depends what you mean by a concept album, because I think every album to some extent is a concept album.
There's
the
definitely
Beatles.
that.
Like, I'm trying to think, Help is a sort of concept album about the 60s, and like, I mean, it's not, but it's like
I get it. I see what you mean. Like, I always thought like the one before, like Beatles for Sale, like even the title, like I feel like the whole album has this like it's only been a year and a half and we're sick of being this famous vibe about it. Like, I think that you're right. And I think that's probably because of what we're talking about. Like, it's really difficult to write good shit about stuff that isn't actually happening to you.
But it's a whole different thing when it's like, there's a real story about some person, like, like The Wall or Tommy,
well that's totally different.
And yeah, I just don't.
It almost feels like a different art form, you know.
Yeah,
like it's like writing a novel combined with writing an album. Or something.
Yeah. So I don't. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I used to kind of think I wasn't guilty of this, but I when I look back at the stuff I write, like lyric wise, it's like that's what I was talking about.
Yeah,
you didn't realise it at the time.
I mean, sometimes like I write stuff. Like I write stuff knowing that it's about something that's going on.
Yeah.
But then like there'll be lyrics in it that I think like that's just like something that like fell out of my brain to like fill that gap in the melody or something. And then I'll look back on it like 6 months later and be like, that's exactly right. You know, it's so strange.
Yeah, and it's always like, oh god, I was really repressing that, wasn't I?
Yeah. It's funny. Like I it's really strange. Like I don't know how to put it, like the way that you write something when you're feeling a certain way, and then you go back on it, you come back on it like a year later or something, and it's like, Jesus Christ, I was wrong about that. Like it's like I have a song, it's going on the busking CD, I recorded the vocal today actually, but which is called Parachute, which is about like I broke up with a really long-term girlfriend probably 6 months ago now or something. And like when I wrote it towards the end of last year, it was like really obvious that things were going downhill, you know, like it's like that kind of those times. And I wrote this song, and it was like very sort of like shit, like I'm really sorry that this is happening, and like I wish we could like keep it together and all this sort of stuff. And like that's like one kind of thing. And then like so it's funny because like that's obviously how it was at the time, but then you come out of it and it's like 6 months later, and I kind of have this vibe of like I mean, even though like any like bad blood that we had like right at the moment of the split is gone, but there's still kind of a thing of like, I don't know what I was talking about, you know. It's like it was like bad enough that like I shouldn't have been this. Well, like, not even that I shouldn't have been, because it totally makes sense when you're in that situation, but like it's just weird to like you write lyrics and then you come back to them and you're like, what's that guy talking about? You know, like it's context. So strange. It's like having a diary with a melody or something.
I'm sorry to pause you. I'm just going to go for piss quickly.
Fair enough.
I just had a couple pints before. Okay.
Yeah, that's alright. Go for it. Didn't want to write a song, but I'm thinking I still care.
This is it.
Sorry about that.
That's alright.
Yeah. So yeah, you see lyrics as being very like sort of diary.
Yeah, it's super. I mean, I suppose the way I'd put it, the way I have put it, in fact, in multiple bios and things, is like it's very like autobiographical. You know, like I feel like stuff just kind of falls out of my brain. You know, it doesn't really even feel like I write it sometimes. You know, it's just what springs to mind and happens to rhyme.
Yeah, that's the same for me. I think some people are really conscious about their lyrics, and they really sort of.
I tend to spend a lot of time like finding, like once the thought's there. I spend a long time figuring out the most like rhythmically cool way to say that or something. But but I think that like the actual thoughts are always just what's there. You know? Yeah, it's strange. I mean, I put a lot of I put a lot of emphasis on lyrics. Like I really think of myself like more of in terms of songwriting. Like I think of myself more of as a lyricist than anything. I think, even though like I really like there's kind of two sides of it. I think that like the bit that I'm best at, or the thing that's most natural for me, is definitely the lyric writing, but the bit that I kind of play with is all the weird chords and shit. That's very much like a passion for me, whereas the lyrics is just like I think it's just what I'm naturally best at. I tend to be very wordy. I in fact sometimes I wonder whether that's like holding me back. Sometimes I think in the vein of that, like the whole like 3 chords 4 chords pop song, like gets in people's head, that sort of thing. Like I always think. And I'm trying to like correct it a little bit with like choruses specifically now. Like I try and like put a lot fewer words in my choruses now. Because like for a long time I used to think that my choruses, like there's basically no reason that isn't a verse other than the fact that I'm singing it over and over again. It's just very wordy, like still. And I think that, I mean, interestingly, I think that I've like considering that I don't think it really shines through much. But I think that I kind of always think that pretty much any like post like 90s at least, because that's when it sort of emerged as a dominant genre, I guess. Like everything post 90s has like some element of like hip hop influence, even if it doesn't mean to. I think that it's like it's impossible to grow up with that like in the like musical vocabulary and not end up thinking about like I feel like the days of like the only rhyming word being at the end of the line is gone, that kind of old school thing, and now it's like tons of internal rhymes and like rhymes.
Which is great.
I love it. It makes it way better. But I'm certain that all comes from hip hop. Like I never really listened to hip hop for influence when I'm writing, but like I'm certain that like it's just like burned into my brain from like years of listening to that stuff.
What sort of hip hop do you find yourself listening to?
I mean, I really like. I honestly think that the major influence on me in the last few years remains Mac Miller. Mac Miller's last album was like massive for me, and it was really sad actually, because like I had never really given him any like thought, and then I got really into swimming, and then he died. Like it was like it just like as soon as I was interested, I mean he was my age, which really like fucks me up. Like it's really strange to think about, but so he's a massive influence, and then I guess other than that, it's like it's older stuff, like like Wu-Tang and stuff. It's I think, but yeah, these days really like Mac is like the biggest like person that I listen to. I think probably the reason for that is like he's got that kind of jazz tinge that I try and bring to stuff as well. So like he's taken like the old like 20s 30s stuff and putting it into something the same as I am. It's just different genres that we're putting it into. And also obviously I'm not a Titanic megastar going out with Ariana Grande. That's the other difference. But how about you? What sort of what sort of stuff do you find influences you?
Well, I mean, it's really interesting to hear you say about hip hop, because it's something I think a lot about myself. Because I mean I've really it's been weird, because for the past few years like the main thing I listen to is not really indie music or guitar based music. It's more like rap music. I had a really big like Biggie phase and Tupac and stuff like that.
And everyone does.
Of course. And I don't think it's quite as I think it has better moments than others, but I've got quite into the UK rap scene.
Right now, I wondered if you meant like the drill stuff that's happening right now. I am completely fucking dense on drill. Like I feel like I haven't been able to crack it yet. Like I don't know why even. I think that like.
Well, live with someone who blasts it out the speaker and you get into it.
I think like the grime thing. Like I was much more up on the grime thing. Like I really remember like Skepta and JMB and all those guys coming out. But like I feel like maybe it's just that I'm like too fucking old now. I feel like maybe I'm out of it. But I'd really like to get into the drill stuff. I honestly don't even know where I would look before. You know? Like I don't know. I don't think I quite know where the gate. What's going to be the gateway drug? Gotta find
what
it.
What is the gateway drug? Yeah, it's difficult because a lot of it is just genuinely not very good. You know.
Yeah.
I think part of the problem with drill is it's not that same willingness to innovate though. I think like hip hop reads in like the 90s.
Yeah.
It's quite happy just being that sort of classic, just gangster thing, and there's not.
I also think like probably another problem I have with it is like that I can't. Like, obviously it's just lifestyle shit. It's just what you've experienced and stuff. Like, I think, like even if I can appreciate stuff on a musical or lyrical level, I feel like that's really clever or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that I mean I'm from the fucking middle of nowhere. I'm from the countryside where they make sauce. You know, like it's not like it's not. I wasn't exposed to like much of like a gang scene when I was a kid, so like it doesn't really speak to my life, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's the funny thing is like this thing at the moment where, I guess because Top Boy is so successful at the moment and so that's a London gang scene is so everyone's so interested by it.
Yeah.
But in reality, so few people are a part of it, and you don't want to be a part of it anyway because it's you know.
Yeah, of course you don't. I always think it's funny that like a lot of this stuff, like I think that, like the talk about that kind of scene online is always blown up by like it's blown out of proportion, as to like how many people are involved in it and stuff by like kind of middle class 14-year-old kids like LARPing in their bedrooms and stuff. You know, it's really easy to be a gangster behind a keyboard. You know,
yeah. No, and people always talk brave. You know, like I remember I worked in this restaurant for a while, and there was this guy who said he picked up weed from Bugsy Malone back in the day. So I mean, it might be true, but it's like you know, it's everyone wants a bit of the pie.
Yeah, for sure.
They want to stake their claim.
There's like a cred thing going on, and like I think I don't know. I always think like it's kind of. I mean, I think it's kind of cringe to want like to be someone who's like been spared having to grow up in that. And then to look in and be like, oh man, I wish I grew up thinking I might get stabbed. You know, that's a really strange take to me.
Yeah, you don't really realise how lucky you are.
Yeah, exactly. Like whereas like I'm blissfully aware of how lucky I was, which is why I moved to somewhere much scarier and less boring.
Exactly.
You know? But yeah.
What do your family make your music? Are they supportive?
Yeah, like I mean my, I think there was a little bit of fear about it when I first started doing it. Like I remember telling my mom that like, you know, it was like the whole like picking what uni you're gonna go to sort of season was coming up, and I was like, I don't think I'm gonna go. You know? I think I'm gonna like
gonna go to Manchester.
Try and start a band, you know. And I think that she was. I remember her just saying like, well, you know, you better get on with it then because like it's you know like it. I think the point was like the clock's kind of ticking, you know. Like if you're not gonna go to uni, you have to kind of figure out a way, like to survive out of it. Like by the time that like people start getting jobs and shit, you know. Because I always remember like when all my mates went off to uni, like I remember I have vivid memories of being like the rich one because all of them were like 50k in debt or whatever, and I was like the only person who was earning who had nothing, so it was always like drinks on me, you know. But like and then like uni finishes and then all these people start getting jobs, and then like as it goes like like being the musician, you stop being the rich one and start being the poor one, you know. But it's just it's a funny little like it's funny I think, but yeah anyway, my family they're really supportive of it now. I think my dad is like, I mean he's been all sorts of shit through his life, but like now that he's getting on, like he sorry dad, he's been like trying to, like he's always had a passion for art and stuff, so he's like got like a little side business thing going on with painting and stuff, and he's trying to make that into his main line of work. So I think that like there's always been creativity around, and like my mom's tried to write novels and stuff.
Oh really?
So,
wow.
Yeah, although I don't think she's finished one. Jude, if you're listening, finish a novel.
Yeah.
But so I think there's always been creativity in the family, so I think that they're supportive of that, and like as long as I don't starve to death out here, I think that they're pretty happy.
Yeah.
But then they like the stuff that I make as well. I mean, I think there's obviously like there's like weird. They all know all my stuff obviously because I send it to them as soon as I've got it, and like so it's really weird that like to know that, like what my dad's favourite song of mine is. Like that's a really weird thing to know, but. It's strange as well because like I wouldn't have really thought they'd have been into the stuff that I was doing, but like I don't know even why. It's just like an assumption. Like I don't really feel like historically I've sounded like anyone. You know, like I've always been trying to figure out what direction I'm going in, and so with there not already being an obvious audience and it being like, oh well, like the punk crowd will love this or whatever. You know, I always thought like, oh, who will actually like this stuff, and the answer is my parents apparently.
Yeah. Well, I guess a lot of guitar music, like indie music now, my dad always says this about my own stuff, and it's like like a lot of people who like it are people that his age, you know. And that's why I ask you about where do you see music going, because I think like indie's not sort of, unless there's something coming, it's not sort of innovating at the moment, you know. It's slightly
for sure. I mean, that's kind of where I see myself slotting in. Because I mean, I suppose what I'm trying to do, sometimes I feel like I'm really fighting against the current, you know, because like this kind of being in this kind of like indie-ish area is already like a little outside, you know, like when so much stuff's electronic, so much stuff is like on the like rap end of things, and like so you're already kind of outfield, but then being like, and I'm gonna use a bunch of jazz progressions is like that's kind of just kicking it way outfield. So like I mean I don't know where it's gonna go. I have this ever present hope that like there's something coming in indie, you know, or in rock in general, I guess. Rock's an interesting word because like you don't the ever expanding definition of rock, you know? Like I don't think anything's gonna come in like an AC/DC kind of vein. But like something like there's gonna be like another Nirvana or another Arctic Monkeys or something, but like who knows what that's gonna be.
Well, I think it could be indie as much as it could be anything else. Because the thing about like electronic music is, you know, it's whatever, you know, like there's some great electronic music out there, but it's not a part of a big movement. And rap music is just like I was saying earlier, there's not this sort of big. It's not really going anywhere.
It's kind of played out.
Yeah, now, it's kind of. You know? I think it's a real shame, but I think you're right. It's like it's not really going anywhere.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, obviously, again, like I'd love to see some more. And there's people flying against it, you know, like Kendrick or someone like that. It's very much flying in the face of it being less innovative than it was maybe, but like I mean, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, somewhere I've wondered a lot whether it is where the scene's gonna go, like mainstream. I've like thought about like hyperpop stuff a lot, you know, like that kind of
hyperpop, which you
so it's like it's emerging. I'm
out
in the corners here. So it's basically like the idea is like so it's like I suppose like the biggest like hyperpop artists would be like 100 Gex or something like that.
Right.
Got to check them out.
I'll have to check them out.
Yeah. But so the idea is kind of it's almost like an ironic take on like what happened like 10 years ago, you know, so it's like that kind of One Direction kind of peak Taylor Swift like early Biebs, you know, that kind of like very very auto-tuned, very very produced thing, kind of what similar to what K-pop's coming out with now, I guess, like, but it's sort of taken to like a kind of ironic extreme, so like everything is like auto-tuned to the point of sounding like almost ridiculous, and like the voices can be like pitch shifted an octave up, and you know, and so there's but like they'll do stuff like the kick will be so high in the mix that like you can barely hear anything or something, you know. It's sort of, it's got this weird like the thing is, it sounds really good, but it's kind of a joke at the same time. I kind of think that like so much of the mindset of kids in like inverted commas, I don't know what that means, like anyone under like 40 maybe even, but like it's all so like soaked in irony, like everyone who's grown up with like social media and memes and all that shit, everything is so
nothing's sincere anymore.
Yeah,
you know?
Everything's a joke.
Yeah.
Which means that like maybe music also will be a joke, you know. And I mean, I kind of think of that like that's the way that I write too a bit, you know. Like I think that like there's something quite like cathartically ironic about writing like some sort of really upbeat song about how like we're all fucked and the climate's dying and like you know like, that's kind of that, you know, that I do think that maybe like that kind of really pushing the boundary between like, oh yeah, I'm a serious musician and also like I'm taking the piss and this is a meme.
Yeah. Well,
like,
I think you can have a lot more fun with anything in life if you don't take it too seriously. Yeah,
for sure. Like I actually think that like that's actually something again that I'm trying to come down on is like I think that for a long time I've probably been taking it too seriously, you know. So like trying to pull back on that a bit is like
it feels nice. Like, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. Like trying to remember like the reason you started in the first place.
Exactly that. Yeah. Like remembering why you got into it in the first place. And if you lose track of that, it's like
what are you doing? You might as well get a 9 to 5.
You literally, well, yeah. I mean, that would be a lot nicer than
it would. It actually would. Yeah.
Yeah. Or as a musician, obviously, are drugs part of your life at all? Like, do you...
Yes, actually. I don't know. I can't decide whether I should talk about it because they are. Like, I mean, I do. I smoke weed all the time.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, my girlfriend's Canadian, and I didn't realise how big stoners Canadians are, but like, she is continuously stoned.
Yeah.
And like, that's kind of really reintroduced it into my life in a big way because like for a long time I didn't actually use it that much. But like that's back in, and like, I mean, I've been like, fuck it, I'm just gonna go out with it. Like I've been doing like a bunch of psychedelics like last year or so, and like, and then just, you know, stuff happens when you're out, you know. But definitely. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a big part of just, it's not really, it's kind of almost strange if you haven't.
I mean, this is the thing, honestly, like, I think, like, you find people, like, once they get into their sort of mid-20s or something, like, it's shocking when you find someone who hasn't, like, done anything.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, I've been more conservative than I think a lot of people my age, because I have quite, well, I mean, the big thing was, like, with weed, I just, it has such a profoundly strong effect on me. I just go so...
Me too, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, because, I mean, this is the thing, like, that one of the reasons I stopped doing it for such a long time was because I found that, like, I used to do hash a lot, and, like, hash is super mild, and, like, this has turned into a very different podcast. Hash is really mild, and, like, that was, like, pretty sound, and then a friend of mine gave me... like I shared a spliff with him outside the back of a pub in like an alley, you know, like proper fucking late teens shit, and I don't know what was in it, but it was like I had such a weird reaction to it, and then for ages after that, like every time I smoked, I was just like immediate whitey, you know,
taking back to that moment,
like but so recently, like it's like it's vaping it that's made the difference, because like it's you can like you don't have to like light up and then you've got a spliff hanging around that you should probably finish. It's like if you've got a vape or something, you can just take a couple of puffs on that, and that's fine, you know. So,
is that like a THC vape or is it one of those sort of, I know you get this sort of vaporizer thing?
Yeah, like it's I mean you'd have to ask my girlfriend. It's her piece of kit, but like it's got actual weed in it, so it's like it's a vaporizer, I guess, but I don't know how it works. I know, but it's a mystery to me. You just breathe in.
I mean, there's so much to drug culture.
For sure.
So
like
complex.
for sure. It's like but like I mean I think that like the most profound impact that like drugs have had on my life is just like psychedelic stuff. You know, you can't overstate. I don't know whether you've done it yourself, but like you can't overstate like the difference, like the door that like doing acid or something kicks down and you're thinking about stuff. Like,
so this is the thing. I've partly because of how badly I've reacted to quite mild stuff like weed. I've just steered clear of like hard psychedelics. But it is something I want to. I want to really book up on it, and you know, I mean, it's fascinating anyway. So I do want to. I think if I've done my research, I'll definitely. I think there's so much to be gained from it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, I mean, if acid's on the cards, my advice would just be like, start with half a tab, you know, start with half.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I did, and I mean, I think that like doing a whole one the first time would be like pretty nuts, you know.
Could you describe it, the sort of door it opens?
I honestly don't even know if I can, but I can try. It's like, it's just profoundly, like, it's super strange. I mean, I think, I'm trying to think about the way to even put it. So, like, the most recent time I did it, it's like, you don't, I mean, at least on the doses that I have done, like, you don't really even see anything that isn't there, you know, like, it's not like, you know, like, you do, like, you see, like, cartoons, like, try and portray how it is, and it's not like that in my experience. It's more like, you become so ridiculously fixated on everything that, like, everything is kind of stunningly meaningful, like, even like a wall or something is just, like, shining with, like, with relevance or something. So, like, last time I did it, we went out to, like, a park, like, just to hang around, because nature is sick on it, and you just kind of, like, you know, like, a tree is just a tree, and then you come up and it's like the tree is, like, has, like, infinite layers of depth, you know. It's like the tree itself is beautiful, and then you look at, like, a little bit of the bark, and that bit of the bark is gorgeous as well, you know. And but the main thing that sticks with you is this kind of feeling of being, like, just kind of connected to everything. Like, there's the real feeling that, like, I'm made of the same stuff as that tree, you know. Like, there's a real, like, I mean, there's not really any word to describe it other than spiritual, really. Like, and it's so profound and so present when you are on it, that, like, it's almost difficult to, like, wake up and not think that, like, that was actually the real thing, you know. Like, it's like this, the way that we are most of the time is, like, this kind of pale imitation of what's actually there, and you can get a glimpse into what's actually there by taking it. Like, that's kind of how it feels. And I definitely think that, like it's, you know, you look back on, like, really important moments in your life, and I think that the first time that I did psychedelics is, like, a really, really big thing, you know.
How does it compare anything to that sort of feeling you get on weeds, where you feel very...
Honestly, you don't feel anything, like, in yourself. There's kind of a... I mean, there's a sort of sensory heightening, but, like, if you're not doing anything, then that is kind of, you know, your body doesn't feel away, or, like, I've never felt, like, ill on it or anything. Although every single time I do it, I realise that there's, like, something wrong somewhere, you know, like, so it's like, I remember the first time, like, I had, like, a mouth ulcer or something, like, I was, like, completely unaware of, but like, your like, senses are so heightened that, like, it's like, you just can't stop thinking about the fact that you have this mouth ulcer. Like, the second time, it's like, I've got, like, I don't know, like, been smoking too much, got kind of a pain here or something. It's like, it really, like...
Well, it's meant to be very good if people want to stop smoking. Especially like, shrooms, because I think you realise what you're doing to your body.
Yeah, I mean, you totally do. The other thing I was going to say is, like, just before I go on to it, is, like, the other, like, sensory thing is, like, sense of smell, sense of taste and everything is, like, they all become kind of messed up and stuff, so you can kind of, you know, look at a colour and kind of know what it tastes like in a way that doesn't make any sense and all that, you know. Or, like, but then again, like, taste, like, you know, generally speaking, like, you don't really... It's really difficult to be interested in, like, unnatural foods when you're on it, you know, like, you kind of... There's something that, like, something about an apple that's very appealing, and then you look at, like, I don't know, like, a bunch of gummies or something, and it's like, that seems, like, nuts to eat by comparison. Yeah. But then at the same time, if you do go with that, like, artificial stuff, like, I remember, like, having, like, salt and vinegar Pringles or something on acid is, like intense, like, sensory overload to, like, a ridiculous degree. But anyway, you just said something really interesting and I completely lost it.
What was I saying? Well, just about how weed is, you know, technically classed as a very mild psychedelic. And I do, like, when people describe psychedelic experiences to me, the only thing I can really, like, compare it to is weeds. I guess maybe, like, stuff like ketamine is
Yeah,
it's
well, I mean,
in some sense,
there's a similarity. The thing that I've done that's the closest to, I've actually never done Ket. I'm a little scared of Ket.
Yeah,
like I think that like
the
thing that I did that might have saved me there is like I saw people on Ket
yeah,
before I was ever offered it,
and
so I was a little bit like, this doesn't seem like the way, you know.
I think anything you sniff out your nose really is just a no-go.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say like Molly has like some kind of visual stuff that goes on like this kind of like acid. In fact, just remembered the last time we did acid, we also did Molly right at the peak, so it was like weird acid dance pie. Like but like it was it was very like intense. Yeah. But sick at the same time. The weird thing about like those two for me like is that they don't really. I mean, other than the fact that like you do Molly, you've got to like make sure you're drinking enough water and that kind of stuff. Like that's the only thing. Like they really don't seem to have much of like physical effect. You know, like it's just like you know. Whereas other stuff. I mean, even like. To be honest, there's every time I do psychedelics, I always think like a thought I always have during and then in the few days after is like, why do I ever drink? You know, it's like this thing of like you drink and you get kind of a little bit kind of stumbly and then you feel terrible the next day, and it's like do acid and like you like the you know like see God for a tenner or something, and then the next day you feel fine. You know, it doesn't make sense.
It's weird, isn't it? I mean, I think part of why I think I should try psychedelics is I do fall into one of those people who just, like, you know, you give them a bit of alcohol and it's just like, you know, you just can't stop drinking after that.
You're one of those people.
Yeah,
me too,
I think psychedelics is good for that because it just gives you an alternative, and it's like, oh, actually, if I just see the world like this, you know, I don't need to do that by drinking.
Yeah. I mean, I always thought like. I was always amazed how much cheaper it is as well.
Yeah,
you know, if it's like you can spend the same amount that you'll spend on like, I mean, you know, you can trip for like 12-14 hours or something, you know, like and you'll spend that much money on like 2 pints, you know. It's
that's
like
crazy.
It's nuts. It's nuts.
No, it's crazy.
But I mean, I do think that like the like having psychedelic experiences has affected my music, although I don't think. That like I mean I've tried to like actually play guitar and stuff like whilst tripping and like it's just not, it doesn't work, you know. You get, like for me at least, I know that like again like Beatles and stuff, you get like visions of like these people tripping out and like writing this stuff, but
like that happens, you know.
But from my perspective, like in my experience, there's, you know, I just get too distracted with like watching the strings vibrate or something, you know, like it's just you just like hyper fixate on it and forget how songs go and stuff, you know. So but I do think that it's had an impact. Like I think I even after the last time decided like I'm gonna write an acid song, you know. I'm gonna write like a weird trippy like visuals kind of song. I don't think I ever finished it though, but like I do definitely think that my stuff got more or like started coming from a place of like even more like kind of vulnerability and just self like autobiographical stuff without much of a care for it being like commercial or anything like that. Like I think that it's definitely made me like more kind of artistic or something. Which is cool. And I think checks out with some stuff that I read about how like it's like, you know, it seems like people are more creative afterwards, which is super interesting.
Definitely true. No, I mean I guess that's what again is cool about the Beatles, is that they were just this very clean shaven band, you know.
Yeah.
And then they go on to just get really into psychedelics and just completely redefine, you know, I mean, it was a movement that went along with it, but you know, it's like they're such a big part of psychedelia.
Yeah, like, I mean, they really like kind of paved the way. I mean, I think that like, do you know the story? You know, they got spiked with it the first time.
It's a funny story.
Ridiculous, yeah. Like I always think like that's the worst, man. Like I mean, I've had a great time, but like every time I've done it, I've known it was happening. You know, like the idea of like taking. And I remember finding out that like the standard like dose in the 60s is like the equivalent of like 2.5 tabs now or something.
Oh really?
So, yeah, which is like like I can't even imagine like having a cup of coffee and then being on 2.5 tabs 45 minutes later, you know. That's absurd, you know. Never got anywhere close to that.
Yeah, you just gotta kind of...
I think that might be when it starts looking more like the cartoons, you know.
Yeah, I imagine that gets on pretty quick. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
like the 2.5 tabs.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's interesting to see where it'll go. You know, drugs and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think that we've got to be coming to like legalization of some stuff. I mean, I actually like. I'm always really interested, again, bringing politics into it, always, but like it seems like the movement to ban psychedelics in the 60s was pretty much like this, you know, it's the thing of like, oh well, like the hippies are against the Vietnam War and we need to keep that going, so if we make LSD illegal then we can arrest them all, and then like, you know, and also like, I mean,
it was illegalized pretty quickly after it was discovered, wasn't it?
I think it was discovered in the 50s maybe, and then like it was used in testing for a while.
But in terms of when it became popular,
like I mean, I think, you know, people didn't really know what it was in like 65, and then I think it was illegal by like 67, 68 or something.
Yeah, so it's like a very short gap.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like it's a scary, you know, it's a scary thing to hear about.
Yeah,
you know? Like the idea of, you know, I think people can, like, even stuff that's like just objectively way more dangerous. I mean, no one's ever overdosed on acid. You know, no one even knows what a lethal dose would be, but like, or if there is one, who knows? But
I think I heard this on like the Joe Rogan Experience or something. But I think a cow, they managed to overdose a cow. On like just a ridiculous amount of but it was you know loads, so, you know.
Yeah but like but then like anything, like the doses are pretty standardized now, and like no one's ever died. Like there's stories that of like people like thinking they could fly and jumping out of windows and shit, but like from everything I can tell, that seems to be like
quite avoidable as well. I think all the negative effects of psychedelics, which would be made better if they're legal, is like just simple things you can do, like have a trip sitter with you. Or just take a small dose for fuck's sake, you know, like. Yeah, it's
like, and just start small. But then I was going to say, like, the stuff that people find, stuff that's way more dangerous, like, you know, like coke kills a lot of people. You know, but like, that people have a much easier time around wrapping their head around the idea of like, oh, you know, you do a line of this thing and then you're kind of energetic or whatever. Whereas like, I think people have a harder time with the idea of like, oh, you know, eat this paper and then all of a sudden you'll like see God in the trees or something. You know, that seems like scarier to people or something. Yeah,
well, that's partly why it's so important, because you of course you're going to run away from something that is going to completely redefine what you think about the world.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I do think that's what I was getting at. Like, I there's a bit of me that's like, it's like conspiracy theory hats on here, but like, I think that it seems like maybe if people did it, then stuff would be different, you know. Maybe if it was a thing that a lot of people did, then stuff would be different, you know.
Yeah, well, I do think that, like, especially with, you know, politics, it's like, well, what, it's like that line from the Stone Roses. It was like, well, what if everyone had tried psychedelics?
Yeah,
you know? I don't know what it would be like. But.
Yeah, I mean, I said, oh man, if you ever try it, recommendation. Watch something by David Attenborough.
My God,
I swear to God, like that nothing will drill more into your head the idea that like a dolphin is just as much of a person as you are, you know, and it like really like it really fucks you up, you know. And I always used to, like, the first time I did it, we'd watched something and it was like Blue Planet or something, you know, something where it's all under the sea, and it's like mind blowing to like have this thought that like, you know, like that dolphin's conscious, you know, I know it is, like, it's swimming around there having a life just like I am. And
crazy.
And like I had this thought at the time that like everyone I was with agreed, it was like this thing of like, before you should get to be a politician, like you get elected MP, like it should be a requirement that you do a tab and watch a David Attenborough documentary. It's like, I'd like to see him fuck up the planet then, you know, I'd like to see him try it, you know, it's really powerful.
So sad, man, all that stuff. It's just, I mean, but, just, I think the problem with politics is you don't get that step back to think about things.
Yeah.
It's all about just amassing power.
And, I mean,
what a great idea. That would really...
it's definitely something.
I mean, consciousness is a really weird one. It's like, you know, what do we do with all these animals that are, you know, granted less intelligent than us, but by what we can tell, just as sensory. It's like, it's a really difficult one.
I mean, I've had a really hard time with I've stopped eating meat basically. And it's that's because of acid. You know, like it's really like the degree to which like it becomes really difficult to be like, man, I'm eating a pig. You know, like that's it gets really hard to stick with it, and but then like you think about everything, you know, it's like, man, like the stuff that I like shrugged off for a long time, like you do psychedelics and you're like, man, all those guys had a point, you know. It's really strange. Like it's very difficult once you start thinking about life in that way to be cool with a lot of the stuff that's going on, you know. I mean, that you should try that. It's again the David Attenborough thing, like do some psychedelics and like watch, like look at the like what do you even call like the palm oil like forests and stuff, and like this like being and like an orangutan trying to find a tree to live in and stuff. It's like that stuff will like break your heart.
I just can't believe that stuff's happening, you know.
I know, it's happening faster and faster.
Like, that driven by, I mean, I don't want to sound naive, but just such beautiful places, and obviously like, you know, I know people have got to survive, and probably part of it is the poverty.
Well, it is. The problem is it's not the people who are actually doing it that are the issue. The issue is like, it's like companies over in our half of the world who are willing to do anything to make their cocoa butter cheaper, you know. Like
I think the West does have to lead by example a bit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I honestly think that I have some optimism, but like I have a lot more pessimism, you know. Like I'm an optimistic guy by nature, but I find myself thinking that like this is not looking great, you know. And it's maybe it's like just a kind of youthful thing to think, you know. Maybe the young people always think like, oh, we've got to change because this is pretty fucked or whatever. But the same way, like I do find like, I mean, I even keep thinking about like this album that I'm this album that I need to record is like, I keep thinking about like titles for it and stuff, and like stuff that keeps coming to mind, like soundtrack to the end or something like that, you know, like it's like, because I do have this vibe of like I even thought about just calling it like everything's fucked, you know, that kind of vibe, you know, because I do feel like there's a degree of just, I don't know, it's like apocalyptic thinking, and like people will call you out for that, and people will be like, oh, you know, it's all like fear mongering or whatever, but there really is this sense that I have, like, now we're not going to do anything about the climate, you know. The middle of Africa is going to dry up, and there'll be hundreds of millions of refugees coming through Europe, and then there'll be all kinds of like horrible conflict about that, you know. It stresses me out, but like the only thing that we can do like as artistic types is just like write down how we feel about it, which is kind of where, like when I said earlier, like I like the idea of going on the road and you know, paying people fairly and trying to change the industry from the inside out, you know, because I really don't like it doesn't, even though like as a human you can kind of see the appeal of like, oh, I'm gonna have like 13 houses and some swimming pools and shit, like you can see the appeal of that, but then there's like just a part of me that thinks like, but really I'd be happy if I just knew that I had like a place to be and like a bunch of friends and stuff, and like the idea of getting in and being an example and changing stuff is like really big for me, and that's really the only thing that I can think, like with my skill set, like how do you change the world when all you know how to do is write songs? Like the only thing that you can do is try and get popular doing that, and then like lead by example. So like that's kind of where I'm at, but
I mean there's not much you can do really. That is I mean you know, you try and think of ways to help, but the problem is it's just, all these problems are just so enormous, and there's so much.
They're massive, and also generally speaking, the people with the power to stop them are people who are going to be dead before it's a problem. Like I think that like it's definitely relevant that like the bosses of like, you know, like the people up at the top of you know, like the major banks and like the oil companies and all this, like they're like 60s, 70s. Like by the time this is a real problem, they'll be gone.
I'm sure there's a temptation to think like that if you're, you know, if you're running a really big business.
I have a hard time believing that they don't think it's happening, you know, because a lot of their argument tends to be like, oh, you know, like the climate science is wrong, or like in the States even, like they still seem to be on the like it's not happening, it doesn't exist angle, which is ridiculous. Insane.
But I mean, I think something I take solace in slightly is you know, people just live through suffering no matter what, and you know, all throughout history, and all you can really do is just try and become the strongest version of yourself.
For sure.
And you know, maybe the big tragedy of the world, whatever it is. I mean, it could be, you know, it could be something else. It could be AI. It could be a big war. But like, you know, you just got to be ready. And maybe it won't be enough, but there's nothing else you can do really. You know, just to take it one day at a time.
I do think that like ultimately, like I think that if things went pretty bad for us, that would actually be pretty good for the world in the long run. You know, like nothing will stop carbon emissions like us going extinct. You know, that's.
Oh yeah, I mean like, the planet is fine. You know,
yeah, it's us that's got the issue. You know, but so I kind of think to a degree, I kind of think that like a system collapse. This is like proper like backwards thinking.
Yeah.
Like I kind of think that like a real system collapse might actually not be the worst thing, especially because. I mean, I don't know how you feel about this. I kind of feel like the majority of people seem to have kind of like this just kind of apathy hanging over them, or like people aren't like super happy with their lives or like with the way the world is, and like I've thought for a long time that like a bunch of what that is like the fact that we evolved to live in like a group of 100 people wandering around looking for food, like you have really close relationships, you know everyone around you and all that kind of thing, and now. Like it's the atomization thing that we were talking about a long time ago with music. You know, everyone listens to their own band, and everyone like you live on a street where you don't know anyone and all that kind of stuff. And I think maybe like a system collapse where like, you know, massive nation states like this couldn't function anymore would actually ultimately be a good thing for not only for the planet but also for just
human happiness,
for the happiness of the people lucky enough to get out of it alive, you know, which is a you know, that's obviously the problem with it is like you can't sustain us at our current population without like enormous agriculture or something. So there's a lot of misery to come in the way of that, but I suppose maybe it's just a silver lining. You know, if things go badly, maybe this way of living isn't actually that great after all. You know.
Well, I mean, I do think it's not good that we live in such. I mean, social media is a big part of this. Like, you know, we're not really connected with our community, especially in the West. Like, what I think is nice about like other parts of the world is there's a real strong like sense of family and like I don't know, like you know, friend of friend is like a really important thing, and you look after your neighbour's dog or whatever, and we just don't really I mean, we have it to an extent, but I think the more you have that, the happier you are.
Definitely.
And that's better for everything really, and then the people are happier, and maybe that's a way to live a more sustainable life
for
as
sure.
well.
I mean, I remember I can't remember if I mentioned this, but like going back to the band I was in, like we went and did like this little like I think it was like 10 days, maybe 2 weeks, this little residency in Sardinia in Italy years ago, 2015 or something, and like I found even I mean I know Italy's the West, but like it's not it hasn't got the super hyper developed post industrial vibe that like Britain and France have, you know. And also Sardinia is kind of like sorry Sardinians, it's a little bit like it's like the Texas of Italy,
very
you know.
Much,
it's very like it's super like countryside-y, very like and I believe kind of right wing and racist as well, but anyway, doesn't matter. But anyway, the people we met were lovely, and like when we were over there, like it seemed like they very much still had that kind of communal, like familial neighborhood kind of vibe, because we were playing in this bar. I remember like one night we played, we were just playing at this bar like we always did, and we got off stage and like just some random family in the audience just like invited us to come have dinner with them the next day. It's
That's
like
so nice.
Yeah,
man.
it's
That's
like
so nice.
Can you imagine that happening anywhere in this country? Like no
you
way.
You just get punched.
Yeah. It's like the difference in vibe was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And it really made me think that like I mean I think I was kind of used to think about moving to the Med a lot. Like, you know, it's like the old like boomer plan, you know, like if I ever had enough money, man, which is if I'm in the lap of the gods, you know, it's like, and then like going down somewhere where it's like A, warmer, and B, like still has some of that kind of communal like old school vibe going on. Like I think that would be a really cool thing to do, because I do think that we're very, very atomized here. I can't speak for the States because I've never been, but like it does seem the same as well from like the way it's portrayed.
No, and people seem happier as well, you know, and that's a great example of how like, I mean, Italy's a lot. I mean, it's a, you know, very wealthy country, but in comparison to France or America or England, it's like it's not quite as, you know, you walk around, things are a bit older.
Yeah.
But it's like the people seem so much happier.
They really do.
I think a lot of why people kind of fall in love with this sort of grungy aesthetic of like poor areas, like, you know, like Hackney is a good example. Like, you know, it's like big flats, and it doesn't look particularly rich, but people like that aesthetic. I think the reason for that is because with it comes this sort of sense of community, subliminally.
I mean, I think so too. I actually found that like when I moved from, because like where I'm from, like the town that I'm from in the middle of nowhere, is the town itself is not like enormously wealthy, but like it's surrounded by like super wealthy rural areas. And so there was generally kind of like it's like a super suburban vibe, you know. It's like that kind of. You know, it's the sort of place where you'd let your kids play outside or whatever, you know. And then, like, so you kind of expect that, like, based on that kind of, like, 50s daydream of what life's supposed to be like. You expect that to be, like, the sort of place where everyone knows everyone's neighbour and stuff. But, like, when I moved to Manchester, like, I was amazed, like, our cat went missing, you know. But, like, everyone was looking for him, you know. Like, it's like it's so much more tightly knit. And I do think that that's ultimately, like, a working class thing, you know. I do think that there's, like, I think you're right, you know, it's the poorer areas do have a kind of sticking together vibe in a much more traditional way than like you go out into the countryside, well not into the countryside, you go out into the suburbs, and there's it's much more like me and my family and my mates, and that's it, you know.
100%. I think you go around a lot of like rich areas of London and it's just like people are miserable, you know.
And, I mean, I always think it's dead in the nice
areas. And it's just there's no excitement that you want as a human. And it's like lovely, you got a nice pool, you know, nice foods. And I'm not saying that like it's fun to be poor.
It's definitely not.
You know, I think what we don't realise is if you're rich and you don't have that sort of community, you can be as rich as you like, you know, but you're still.
It's like it's different problems, different solutions. You know, what you want is both. But like, I think that the problem is that like the people who do have wealth seem to do like anything to like get rid of their community. You know, like it's that thing of like, you know, there's nothing less community focused than like building a fucking gated community or something. You know? But like, but there's, I think they get fearful for what they have. You know, and so they don't. You know, they don't rub shoulders with people who have less with them, and there just are fewer rich people, you know, and I also think that like another thing with the rich areas of London is that quite often there's no one there, you know. So many of the houses are like investment properties and stuff. Like it's like you get streets and streets that are just like owned by someone like half the world away who's just got like 10 million sitting there for.
I know.
You know, little piggy bank that a homeless person could be in.
Just all that beautiful housing.
I mean, I love those houses as well. You know, if I could live, if money was no object, you know, like I'd love to live in one of those townhouses. You know, I think that like stunning.
Yeah, man.
But they're overinflated to fuck. You know, I mean, I have the story, like, Paul McCartney, when he moved down to London in the 60s, like, he was staying at his like girlfriend's dad's place, which is like this massive townhouse in Marylebone, and like, now, you know, you'd have to be like some kind of like Saudi oil baron to afford it, but like at the time it was only like a therapist or something. So it's like the and not that therapist is like a bad job or anything, but just that, like, the fact that someone with like just like a pretty good job could afford like a 5-story townhouse in Marylebone, and now it's like I'm sure it's in the tens of mils, that house now.
It's just off the cards if you're not like a Saudi oil baron,
or like Elon, you know. It's like these guys, you know, they can have as many as they want, but no one else gets one.
I mean, it is just it's crazy how, like, I mean, it's there are a lot of reasons for it, like, but the fact that it's such a pyramid of wealth.
It's the steepest pyramid you can imagine as well. Like, there's so many people at the bottom and so few people at the top. You know, I think it's really, it's funny because it seems to, like, that, you know, there's the argument that it kind of follows a kind of natural law almost, that like
that's
stuff tends to accumulate.
Why I'm skeptical to criticise it, because I know it's like complicated.
It's very complicated.
It does look very, like, I see why people get angry at it, you know.
I mean, my kind of thinking about it has always really been the same, which is just that, like, there's a really simple solution, I think, which is just the idea that, like, you know, you just change the way we think about it. Because at the moment, you think if you have a bunch of money, right, and you build a factory or something, and then, like, you've got people working in the factory, it's like you get some of the money because you built the factory. But it's like, well, it's not obvious to me that it should be the case that, like, having money in the first place and building a factory should entitle you to the money that's earned there, you know. Like, it's a property question. Like, I think that ultimately that's where all this shit comes from.
How would you sort of implement that? Like,
well, I mean, I think that, like, the way that it tends to happen, where it does happen, is ultimately, like, it's syndicalism. So, like, you know, it's obviously I'm not in any of these trades, so it's difficult for me to say, but like, I suppose the idea would be, rather than like some guy runs a or some guy opens a factory, some guy gets a loan and opens a factory, it would be like a collection of the people who are ultimately going to work there get together and put up the money or get a loan for the factory, and then rather than working for I don't know, like 20k, 30k, whatever people are on, I don't even know, because I'm not in the industry. I just get paid what people throw at me on the road or give me for gigs. But like, you rather than getting paid a salary or whatever, although you could also do it that way, you have people have an ownership stock, so, you know, you end up in a situation where it's like, there's 100 workers, the workers have like 1% equity in the company, and then if the company makes $1 million, then everyone gets, like, what is that, like 10k, like, that makes it sound not very much, but you know what I mean. Like,
I get the principle, and I think like, again, like, I'm not much of a economist or anything.
Neither am I, as you can tell.
I think, like, if you're purely talking in terms of like human happiness, I think what you're sort of talking about is a real, like, happy families kind of, you know, there's the local butcher, the local
for sure,
and, like, you know, people just work it out to divide the
wealth in a way,
and, like, it's difficult to do that in real life, obviously, but
it is. I mean, I think that really it's just got to be a conversation. Like, I don't think that it's something that you could implement tomorrow, but I do think that it's something that we can take steps forward. I think that really, ultimately, all we have to do is decide that the starting conditions are a problem. Like, we need to decide that the way that things are is bad, and, like, look at something and be like, that'd be better, and then make stepwise motion towards, like, it'd be cool if the rent didn't go up every time. You know, like, you know, it'd be. I mean, that it's just that kind of stuff. You know, like, just put in some rules to limit the amount of power that people have just off the basis of owning property. It doesn't have to be all. It doesn't have to. We don't have to go full Soviet overnight. You know?
Well, no, it is like a problem. You know, where, you know, people can be tyrannical with money, and I mean, like, you look at Amazon and like, you know, it's like some of the stuff he's done. I mean, it's very clever, but it's so like not good.
I mean, I always think this, like, about, like, the billionaire types. I always think, every time I find anything out, like, any of their, like, little, like, strategies and, like, anti-union tactics and all that, I always think, like, fuck, that's clever. Yeah, but, like, at the same time, it's like, but also, you're kind of a dick, man. You know, like, it's
well,
like...
that's the thing. That's the thing. Yeah, but... I guess that's what rewards people is like. I mean, that's another problem is with the system we have is like big business is kind of it's the only way to go. You know, it's very hard to.
Well, this is the thing. It's like it's really hard. Like, it's very difficult to justify. You know, if you have two options, you know, you can go. Like, say, I don't know, greengrocer or something, you know, you're like your local little greengrocer. It's very difficult to go and pay them more money when you're poor yourself. Rather than go to fucking, like, some, I don't know, whatever, Tesco and get it for half the price. And, like, that's difficult, which is why I think that it can't be on us, you know, it can't be on... You know, people say, like, vote with your dollars or something, you know, that kind of idea. But you can't, because we don't have enough dollars to vote with. We have to vote for whoever's giving us the stuff the cheapest, you know? Which is always going to be the mega corporations that can afford to do it. So it can't be us, it has to be systematic, Well, that was a wild little... Like...
we talked about a lot of stuff. I should probably let you get back. But it's been... Sure. Real pleasure, and
thank you for having me. You know?
Yeah, well, maybe in the future when we're all set up, we can do this again.
I'd love that.
I'd like to get some microphones and stuff. And...
Sick, we'll do it.
Yeah,
I mean, I could. This just sounds like a discussion now.
Yeah.
Consider this the end of the podcast or cut it out.
Yeah,
but it's. I mean, I could bring a mic or something. It depends whether you've got something
nice.
But we could do something.
Sweet, bro. Well, thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.